Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. I had business today up in Evanston. Now, Evanston is a suburb of Chicago, and I have a history there, a bit of a history. When I first moved into the city and was trying to find work, all I could get in the city of Chicago itself tended to be mostly factory type jobs. But up in Evanston, I was able to get clerical and data entry type jobs that paid about 50 cents more an hour and were not so backbreaking. And so that was what I did. And in those days, I would go to a number of fine bookstores that existed. Most of them, I believe, are gone. While I was in that early phase of working in Evanston, a bookstore opened called Amaranth Books. It was a very small bookshop, and I picked up books here and there, including these books. It says The Voice of the Buddha, but its true title is the Lalitavistara Sutra. Now, I bought these sheerly because they were beautiful. Let me try to show you them. It's very much an anomaly throughout my whole, you can see the pages. And well, you've got, I'm really afraid of damaging these things here. Maybe I can hold it up like this. And there's a little piece of paper in front of it. Can't get this. And then behind it there is a lovely print. Let's show it to you. And I bet the price is still in here. Oh my goodness. This is very much a rarity. So I paid $37 for these two books. Back then, that was quite a lot. I mean, I was making $7 an hour. And I don't know what possessed me to get those, other than something which I think anybody who has grown up with the internet possibly can't understand, which was just how difficult it was to get information about things back in the old world. And I was probably looking to get some sense of Buddhist scripture. Now, I did read a little bit of this here and there, but I never read the whole thing through. In fact, I have a bookmark on page 32, and that is probably about where I got to. How does the Chakravartin king possess the treasure of the elephant? For the Chakravartin king who has received consecration, the treasure of the elephant comes forth in the same way as the wheel. Pure white, with 4 firm limbs, strong tusks, and trunk, the elephant wears golden head ornaments and trappings. He bears a golden standard and is covered with golden netting. Endowed with supernatural power, he travels through the heavens, knowing the laws of transformation well. For this reason, the king of elephants is called Bodhi. So, totally alien to me. And I pulled those out because I have held on to these for probably 35 years. And they have survived a number of book purges, just barely, because I felt the places that I was giving my books up to were not good enough for such beautiful volumes. I wouldn't be trying to sell something like this, but you do want it to go to a deserving home. And at this point, maybe now that I'm reading more, maybe I will actually read some of that. Though my interest in religion has largely waned. But the old Amaranth Books was still there, is still there, and I walked in, and the same proprietor is still there. And I talked to him a little bit about how when I was a young man, I came into his shop, and he calculated back how long ago that was and sighed and said, I was almost but a young man at that time myself. to which he added, something went wrong, or what went wrong? Well, I thought nothing went wrong. You're still here, and you've been here all these years. And when I go into bookstores of this sort, I like to buy things to just support the store. In his case, I felt he probably doesn't need it because he has held on for all these decades, and if anything, he is nearing retirement time. And since I believe the store was completely on his shoulders, when he retires, the bookstore will probably close. Possibly in the old days, he had some young helper taking over at lunch or something like that, but I have no memories of that. But I do remember the proprietor himself. And as I said, it's a small shop. There's only 3 aisles, going back, well, probably the size of a good-sized bedroom now, you know. But it's well stocked, a nice inventory of everything you might like, not genre fiction, but all of the basic categories, different types of science, sports, American history, other history, classics, and of course a good amount of fiction. One thing that he had, which I decided not to pick up on, was a nice selection of mint collection Library of America editions. Certain things like Henry Adams' History of the Jefferson and Madison administrations, both books that I would very much like to have, and knowing that they're there, it's hard for me to resist going back. But realistically, it's not likely I will read those. And the other problem is this space. What will I do with these things? I've recently been going through a lot of books and reorganizing and ousting a couple of boxes worth, and I still have more weeding to do, as the library calls it. But I could not resist picking up some things, and I want to show you what I got. The first one is the Discourses of Machiavelli. It's a Penguin trade paperback. Now, in the course of all of my shuffling books around, I came across this book, but in a mass market edition, a Penguin mass market edition, in miserable shape. And every time I saw it, I thought, I've really got to hunt for a better copy of this at the charity if I go there. But I go there rarely, and it's becoming less likely that I would find something like that there anymore. So I picked it up, and it's got a little bit of yellow on the pages, which is a rarity for books in his shop. So that was one. Since I have been reading Edith Wharton, I picked up this, a mint copy for $4. I don't know that I'm going to be reading any Edith Wharton anytime soon, but I have liked the 3 novels that I have read, not without reservations, of course, but I'd like to have it on hand. Then this is just from the cheapy bin. It was only $2. It's also a little bit yellow. Now, I've read this book a couple of times, but not in this edition. I don't remember who published the version that I have, but I thought that for $2, it was worthwhile to get the Penguin edition, if just for the introduction. But it may well be something that I'll read again. It's having read Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, I have a much better sense now of where Boethius fits into the chronology of things, which I never did. This is something I read very early on, and then read one other time a little bit later, but still before I had read Gibbon. I mean, I should have an BG and an AG, I guess, before Gibbon and after Gibbon. Now, the next two I just couldn't resist. I was never, ever a big fan of NYRB books, but I have become one since watching BookTube because they are favorites of so many people. And I got a couple of books by J.G. Farrell, about whom I know nothing, but he wrote The Siege of Krishnapur, which Priscilla at Evening Reader has mentioned, I believe, positively. I've heard somebody mention Troubles, but I'm not sure if it was her or somebody else. And according to the biographical note, these three books form something of a colonial trilogy. How do they refer to it? His Empire trilogy, they call it. So Troubles, The Siege of Krishnapur, and the Singapore Grip. So Troubles is first, so that would be the one to start with now that I know it's a trilogy. I've read just recently 3 novels by Edith Wharton, so it's not beyond the realm of feasibility that I will read 3. I should have pulled that one out to show that I have it, but you can take my word on that. Then, one of the more expensive things I bought, Ida B. Wells. I know nothing about Ida B. Wells, but they have changed the name of our downtown street, Congress, and I don't know if they've changed the Congress Expressway name, but so it is now Ida B. Wells instead of Congress, and it may well be the Ida B. Wells Expressway. I don't know. Also, I guess that was the Eisenhower Expressway, which is how I would refer to it, but I don't know where the term Congress Expressway comes in, but I have heard that usage. But regardless, you can't refer to Congress anymore. You have to refer to Ida B. Wells. Given the price and the beautiful condition, and given that she is an important name in Chicago, I decided that I really ought to learn a little something about her. It's the type of book, clocking in at 568 pages, that I'm probably not likely to read the entirety of, but we'll see. I want to learn more. And the last book, this was a real bonanza. Although I had recently decided I would not bother getting this. And this is Joseph Anton by Salman Rushdie. Recently, about a year ago now, when he got stabbed and almost killed, a lot of booktubers made a point to pick something by the author and read it, sort of as a show of solidarity, and I wanted to, and I passed up a copy of this at a store for like $6, a paperback, and regretted it because when I went online I couldn't find much, and a number of people said this was a very good memoir, even though I'm not a fan of memoirs. But Joseph Anton, I believe, is the name that he went by after the fatwa was issued against him, and it describes the period of when he was living incognito. It's a long book, again, over 600 pages, but it's a beautiful hard copy. Now, I shy away from hard copies now because storage issues again, but it's beautiful. Doesn't look like it's been read, and it was only $5, so I could not pass that up. So this was my haul. Now, look at that. Just look at that. Now, I showed you my books from 35 years ago or whatever. The book from that era that I did not show you, that I remember purchasing in his shop, was The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. It was a 1-volume thing, about that thick. And I always intended to read it. I never did. And I've realized you remember more of the things that you didn't read. Probably everything else that I did buy from him, I did read. But Adam Smith, at this time, it's still a possible TBR or an item in my pile of possibilities. But since having read Gibbon, of all people, I've come to the conclusion that he may not be so critical for me to read, particularly at this time in my life. I don't read a lot of economics. In those days, I was reading a lot of, John Kenneth Galbraith, and especially John Maynard Keynes. His The General Theory was a book that I bought at the same time from a bookshop in Evanston, but alas, one of the many bookshops that no longer exists. So that was my little haul for the day, which he gave to me in a nice jewel bag. I expect to be slowing down with my reading, but I will pop back in if I have something even moderately of interest to me, not necessarily of interest to you. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.